اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وعلينا وسلم وأما بعد. On the 5th of March, which was 23 of Sha'ban in the year 437, in the year 1046 of the Christian era, or the Common Era, a man, his name was Abu Mu'in Nasr, son of Khusro, from the town of Qubadian in the district of Marb in northeastern Persia, who described himself as being, quote, a scribe by profession and one of those in charge of the revenue service of the ruler, end quote, leaves his comfortable and somewhat dissolute life of some 40 years behind. When I say somewhat dissolute, I must say that people have misunderstood that. He had a very easy life, but he was Hafiz of Quran. He had read both the Injil and the Tanakh. He had read most of the Greek books of wisdom. He was an expert in mathematics and in astronomy and in many, many other subjects. And his life was a life from his work for the ruler, taking care of accounts, that was filled with study. He was one of those people who were drunk on books and drunk on studying. That's what he loved to do. But anyway, he left this life, and he left that life and all that went with it because he was also very successful, very well thought of. He had a very good reputation. Everything was perfect, so as to speak. And he went to Mecca to make Hajj. And he did this on the basis of a spiritual dream, or what we call a Rؤya, which he relates himself as follows, quote, one night in a dream, I saw someone speaking to me saying, how long will you continue to drink of this wine which destroys the intellect of mind? This means casual studies and so forth. Because there was no focus to his studies. Some people are enamored with knowledge. They just love knowledge. They love studying, they love reading, it's a kind of spiritual materialism. It's a kind of spirituality which is an expansion on a horizontal plane, but not on a vertical plane. So he says, how long will you continue with this? If you were to stay sober, in other words, if you were to focus on something, it would be better for you. In reply, I said to him, the wise have not been able to come up with anything for me other than this to lessen the sorrows of this world. And he said to me, to be without your senses is no repose. You cannot be called wise when you are led to senselessness. It's better to seek out that which increases one in reason and in wisdom. And I replied, where can I find such a thing? He said, seek and you shall find. And at that moment he pointed to the Qibla, the direction of prayer to Mecca, and said no more. Still quoting the poet, when I awoke, I remembered everything. That's one of the things of a Rؤya, you remember everything. I remembered everything which made a truly great impression upon me. And I said to myself, you have woken from last night's sleep. But when will you waken up from this sleep of 40 years? When will you wake up for this sleep of 40 years? And I reflected that until I changed all of my ways, I would never find true happiness. This is in his Safarnama, in the very beginning of the book. He explains how it all happened. This is his travel book, which describes these travels he took. Thus, he made right then the niyyah to do this. It took him a few weeks, actually, for this to happen. And he left everything behind. And he left with his brother and a servant, and they started off on a pilgrimage to Mecca, which he understood when the man pointed to the Qibla that he should go to Mecca and make Hajj. He left on that, and it was going to but he left on a journey which he didn't know at the time. It wound up taking him 7 years, and he did most of the 2,800 miles of that journey on foot. That's like basically walking across the United States in terms of distance. An account of this journey, which he compiled in the latter period of his life when he was in exile, is this well-known work I mentioned, the Safranama, in which he used notes that he had taken all along his journey, 7-year journey. And the prose of this book is like a travelogue, which is different from his poetic works and his philosophical works, because he also wrote a tremendous amount on that level, and we'll talk about that. And in the beginning, as I said, the very beginning of it, the first page is this story. This is the story that he tells about the man coming in the middle of the night while he's sleeping. I started writing this, it just happened to be the 5th of March in the year 2014, is exactly the same day that he set out on his journey, 968 years earlier. I didn't know that at the time, but as I was doing my research on this, I found out that he started on the 5th of March, and that's when I started writing this bayan, this paper. And I hope that this coincidence, if you want to think of it as such, turns out to be propitious in telling the tale and in making known the life of Nasr Khusro. And I hope to be able to explain why I think it's important for Muslims to know about Nasr Khusro. This series on strangers are about people that we think sometimes, like in the case of Al-Khidr alayhi salam, you think you know about him, but there's many things you don't know about him. About Salman al-Farsi, people know his name, they know that he came from Persia, they know that he became a Muslim, they know that he saw the Prophet ﷺ for the first time. They don't know that he was brought up to be a Zoroastrian priest and actually acted as a Zoroastrian priest for a number of years, that then he became a Christian and he studied with 4 different bishops and till he reached the end of anybody who knew anything, and they were the ones who told him to go to Medina because there was a prophet coming, alayhi salatu salam, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But people don't know that. They just know the name. And the name of Nasr Khusro is even further unknown. Or if it's known with approbation, and we'll speak about that as well. So why am I writing about him, aside from, this thing of trying to make these little-known characters a little bit more known to a larger segment of the Muslim community? In the West, he's known mainly to academics, to Persian scholars, and a few people out of the school of Henri Corbin and Sayyid Hussein Nasr and Allama Tabatabai, may Allah be pleased with him, who are drawn to Gnosticism and mysticism. But very few people, given how many people there are in the Muslim community and in the larger academic community. Though he continues to be very well known in Iran, where his book is widely taught from high school on. It's still readable, still understandable. So, but I'm one of those smattering of people, if you like, in the West, who is drawn to mysticism and Gnosticism. Beyond that, I've read widely all of my life, and over the last few years, in the 7th decade of my life, I have been drawn as a Muslim to try to understand 2 hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, which read as follows. First one is related by